Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
This is a science fiction movie podcast. We get together, we've watched a sci-fi movie. It's that simple, we talk about it. And coming up today, we are returning to a franchise that we have been dipping back in and out of over the last couple of years. And that is the Invisible Man franchise. We started with 1933's original film, and we're here today to talk about the fifth movie in this franchise, which is The Invisible Man's Revenge from 1944. So we're going to get into it. We'll start spoiler free. We'll give you a warning before we go into spoilers, and we'll take it from there. What's interesting though is that, well, we say franchise, it's more like a shared heritage rather than a franchise, because very few of them have actually been connected to the previous films. I think the second one did try to say it was like someone who knew Claude Rains' character from the first film, but ever since then they've mostly just been, what can we do something different with this basic premise? And we had Invisible Agent, we had Invisible Woman, which was more of like a comedy almost. And then we have this, which is maybe going for more of a sinister character gets the power and tries to use it for his own gains, which arguably is not that dissimilar from like the original, where the character's already going a little bit mad and wants to use it for himself anyway. We can get into that. Were you excited about returning to?
I wish I could say yes.
Oh.
But not really. I think these films have kind of lost their excitement factor.
I mean, to be fair to it, it was only Agent that was kind of disappointing. I think we both came out of Invisible Woman feeling quite good about it.
Yes.
Quite positive.
Invisible Woman was actually like a fun little find.
Yeah.
The Invisible Man 2, the one with Vincent Price, was kind of disappointing. Invisible Agent was like, okay, so I guess we're making the turn again.
Yeah. I think Invisible Agent was interesting in that it felt like a failure, not because it tried something different, because it didn't feel like it took advantage of what its premise was. It felt like it still just became just the same old jokes, despite the fact that
a lot of gags. Yeah.
We could have been doing so much more with it. Invisible Man's Revenge here kind of feels like they didn't even bother doing the gags.
There's like one gag with darts, and that's about it.
Yeah, I'm not complaining that there's no gags. Like, if you want a more serious film, then that's fine. But I wouldn't necessarily say the plot or the characters are that interesting either. So,
or likable. There's like no one likable in this.
Yeah, we'll get into the fact that the people he wants revenge on are actually quite villainous, but the movie gives them no comeuppance.
No.
So, because that really made me confused, is when we introduce this character who, at the very start of the film makes it clear to us that this man has escaped a mental hospital and has killed 3 people. But then it presents us with a... If he hadn't given me that opening, I would assume we'd be still rooting for this character, because when we actually meet the characters that he wants revenge on, they screwed him over. And we'll get into in spoilers how they screwed him over and why. And they kind of further try to screw him over for their own gains. And then he becomes invisible when he runs into a scientist who's working on invisibility technology.
The father of David Carradine.
Is it?
Yeah, it's John Carradine.
Ah.
He looks like him too.
We will not make any jokes about how a Carradine later in time may have passed away. We will not do that. I'm putting my foot down saying no.
Such an honorable person.
I like to think so, Tara. I like to think so. Ultimately, you give me this character who then from that point on, once he's invisible, is doing villainous things. But the characters he's doing them against also were pretty villainous. I mean, maybe not as villainous as killing people, but still villainous.
Well, I mean, they seem to have stolen a lot of stuff from people.
Yeah.
And including our invisible crazy guy.
It's so weird to me, because they introduced this rich couple that he's kind of like, you know, rivaling, that they're the people he wants revenge against. The interest is they have like a daughter who presumably is quite innocent, right? And like a big part of the plot is that our invisible man wants to like take her as a wife, partly out of revenge. Like I don't even know if he really likes her or if he just wants to do it to get back at them. It's like, oh, I'm going to take her as a wife to get back to you. Like, we introduced her and her like current boyfriend, who's this reporter dude. And when they introduced them, I thought, oh, those two are going to be main characters in the movie. And I felt like the movie, especially her, I felt like the daughter.
Oh yeah, she was really set up to be somebody important.
But then you don't see her again until the last like 15 minutes. Like she is just gone from the movie. Like she's mentioned but never seen for a long period.
We just see her portrait.
We see her portrait. We hear her mentioned because he's making demands about her. But I thought, wait, but her and the reporter dude are the innocent characters who I would assume we could root for if we like were sort of like if we were following her story, we'd be like, oh, we're sympathetic. We don't want her to be taken by the Invisible Man. We're rooting for them to stop this because she's the one we care about. But we never really get to know her or care. She's just their daughter.
Right, and I think he's been gone from their lives for like at least 6 years, which would mean that like their daughter was a child like when he was pining over her photograph. So I mean the timing is it's weird.
For context, he mentions that he had a photo of their daughter when he was left behind in Africa
that he like worshipped and fell in love with her because of that.
And she's like what, between 18 and 20 right now, something like that.
Maybe. Yeah. So
she at best was like 14 in this photo.
Yeah.
At best.
If it was like photo they had right before they left.
Yes.
On their jungle journey.
Yes. So yeah, let's not get into like the shadiness of him pulling out a photo of what might have been a 12-year-old to keep himself company in lonely nights. But yeah, it does raise a lot of sketchy questions about our main character.
This guy, our main character is not a good guy.
Which would be fine if he is the clear villain and the characters that he's going after are like sympathetic, because it's like, okay, maybe they did kind of do something that he'd want revenge for, but if we could if we could sort of like see their side of it and say, okay, we understand the way fate fell, the way that maybe it looks bad on them that they did this thing, but maybe they had a good reason for it or something. You know, we could be like, okay, you did something bad, you have to own up to it, but you don't deserve what he's doing. You don't deserve that he's coming after you. You don't deserve that he's coming after your daughter. But honestly, most of what we see from them is, up until a certain point in the film, is quite heinous. And then after that, they're just kind of sniveling cowards about what's happening to them, and they never like have a redemption. They never have anything.
Are we doing like spoiler free and spoiler section for this, or
yeah,
we're just gonna go into it?
No, we're still spoiler free. We're still spoiler free.
Okay.
Yeah. So hold your tongue. That was kind of disgusting. Whatever that was.
I just like inhaled through my teeth.
It was a little slurpy. Look, all right. I said hold your tongue, not doing an impression of a snake.
Okay, I didn't mean to.
It's okay, we'll move on. I'm sure the audience will forgive you. It's fine. So yeah, in terms of other things to talk about, I mean, what are we talking about? We're talking about the effects of the Invisible Man, and we're talking
They still look pretty good. I mean, I still enjoyed the effects, like when they were there.
If anything, yeah, they might be, in some ways, are the strongest they've been, which I guess just makes sense because time's moving forward, they're getting better at it. There's other times, though, where they did a couple of weird things with it. Later on in the film, there's a moment where he's going to put something on his face. He puts some, like, powder, I guess, like some flour, right? He takes out and puts it on his face. And because they're going to do that moment, for the rest of the scene up until that point, you can actually see kind of like the faint outline of his head. And I think it's because of the way they're doing the effect, they can't like hide that. It's not good enough that they can hide that until so he could like physically in the scene just do it, and then it would appear on his face. But because of that, there's kind of this weird like, you know, look to like an outline of his head. But you can kind of see that he's got.
I noticed, yeah.
There's like a weirdness to it. And you can, and then he does that thing. He was, oh, that's why it was like that, because they knew they were going to have this, so they just kept it consistent up until that point, which I respect. I respect not having it shift between. But
what I liked about that moment for the effects is that his eyes are still like completely hollowed out, so you can't like see his eyes. But then when the scene fades to black, you see his eyes. So there is like still an error there in the effects, unfortunately, that take you kind of out of it.
I mean, he's doing well enough. At one point, someone does fight with him while he's invisible, and there is a little bit of that. This actor's just throwing himself around the room, and
yeah, they needed a little more choreography.
Yeah, which, you know,
we get animals in this though that are invisible, which is kind of fun.
We get an invisible dog, which is basically just that old joke of someone holding a leash that's been designed to like you know, be stiff, so it looks like it's been held up.
It's the most well-behaved dog ever.
I'm like, you should be shaking that a little bit more or something to give it a bit more of a push and pull.
I do like the character of the scientist in this. He kind of reminds me of like modern day B horror movie scientist.
He's kind of a weird inclusion because this movie has nothing to do with an invisible man or like mad science until the main character just happens to stumble into the scientist like half an hour. Because it's for a movie that's like 75 minutes, it's a good half hour before we get to the scientist. So there's no like invisible man stuff for a while. When we finally get to him and he opens the door and he's got like the white like sort of scientist coat on, he's got like the little thin glasses on, and I'm like, you're just like mad scientist 101.
Yeah.
That's all you are. And it's like, okay. So it's a bit hokey because of that, but at the same time it's kind of endearing.
It adds something to the film. I do think a lot of the extras in the movie, or I shouldn't say extras with lines,
supporting characters
are very over the top.
Sure.
I mean, they have to say that they're in London, so like the British accents are extreme in this for those characters.
They're honestly though, the best character might be there's a comic relief character who's Cockney, who's like this little scoundrel who keeps trying to like basically weasel out of things and try and get them to give him money. I thought he was all right. He was mildly entertaining. I thought he had this thing where he always tries to present himself like he had the best interests at heart of whoever he was conning before. But
I'm talking about like the bartender or like the cop on the other end of the phone who's like, hello, like straight out of Mary Poppins British.
I feel like that's what you get though in like I mean, I presume they filmed this in England, but I presume that any Hollywood funded movie that has British characters in it from this time period, that's what you're probably going to get. You're going to get thick accents.
There's some great faces in this, like great old-timey faces that they look like they're Norman Rockwell paintings. They're so like exaggerated features and stuff.
And
they're fun to watch.
A lot of mustaches as well. A lot of mustaches. To the point where I almost mistook the villain or our main character for like the reporter character because they both have the same thin little mustache, and I'm like, seriously, like have some variation on this. Like your guys all look the same.
the little pencil mustache.
Yeah,
across the top lip.
Yeah,
which I'm surprised he was able to keep while he was invisible.
Well, his hair goes invisible.
I know, but like I imagine that takes some maintenance.
True. Well, I mean, how long is he invisible for? It's only a few days at most, right? I get what you're saying.
It's called 5 o'clock shadow for a reason.
I mean, yeah, there should be some stubble by the time he becomes visible again. I agree. Like, you're right, but you know, it's not like there should be a full beard. It's not like he's spent months.
That would be hilarious, though. If he is no longer invisible and he's just got a full beard and like the crazy long hair. How long was I out?
I mean, if you're someone who doesn't like having a beard and you shave, I feel like you would just shave the whole thing. Because you can still do that when you're invisible. You don't have to see it to do that, really. You just feel it.
I wonder why the hair goes invisible, why that's a rule.
Because it'd be too hard to deal with the fact that there's a floating wig.
Yeah.
Constantly. It would also stop the invisibility from being useful if you could see like the hair floating around.
Or you just shave.
True. That might have been a funny moment in The Invisible Woman when she refuses. And she's like, no, I'm not shaving my head. Are you mad?
Just a floating hat everywhere.
I'll put on a bald cap. So it's just a floating bald cap. The fact that the hair doesn't go does go invisible is really just down to because it'd be a pain to deal with if it didn't, from a filmmaking perspective. So I'm sure someone somewhere's headcanoned this and made it work in science, but let's be honest, it's just justifying something that makes it more difficult. So
yeah, but ideally, if you're a mad scientist, you would want someone who maybe had alopecia or something to be your experiment.
Is there anything else to talk about spoiler free? Other than because we said that ultimately it's not that fun.
Not really. I mean, there's some fun moments in it, but it's overall like there's no one really to root for, and it takes a long time to get going. And it's not like a very long film, but the opening part kind of feels long. And
you don't even have the invisible gags to fall back on. Although, admittedly, we complained in the last one that they were getting a bit old hat. So I'm not saying.
The problem with the last one is that the guy was an agent. He was supposed to be invisible and unseen, but he kept doing all these things to be noticed, to be seen.
Well, no, that's very true. But I think even outside of that, though, there was kind of like a fatigue setting in of like these invisible gags are starting to feel a bit samey, and so I don't want it to rely on that. But it's not. But I guess what I'm saying is they didn't even put them in to like make it work. Which I would still critique and say maybe this is getting a bit old hat now, and it's just I don't care. But it would be something. Whereas I feel like the movie instead doesn't give me anything to really care about, which is a shame. So this might be the weakest one of the whole bunch so far.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's like unwatchable or anything though.
No,
like it's
I
still
wouldn't say that.
like if you're interested in the franchise, don't skip it.
Yeah, it's not painful to watch. I mean, it is only 70 something minutes, so it's not like it's torture to get through or anything. But it's probably the weakest one. Maybe I'd have to watch The Agent again to like decide, because that was definitely the weakest one before this. So it's really just maybe a toss a coin for which one. Agent, at least in theory, was trying for something new and interesting, but just avoided doing anything with it. So maybe that's more egregious
just
than this.
Just needed one more pass with the script, maybe. But like, why is our agent trying to be discovered as invisible? It's interesting that they made him crazy to begin with for this, instead of the invisibility serum making him crazy, because he can, do whatever he wants.
That's not even because that's not been a thing since the second movie, though, because I don't think Invisible Women had that either.
No.
So I think that's just something that we can't assume that's a rule anymore. So,
or it just doesn't affect women.
Because they're already crazy.
No, because we don't have desire to peek on to peep on men, naked men. You
saying that's it? That's the only reason why men go crazy if they go invisible?
Yes. Because that's the first thing they do. Some voyeurism.
Not if they're decent human beings, they don't.
Yeah. Well, that's the point of the serum. It turns you into someone who's not decent.
But I'm saying I would like to think I am a good enough person that if I did go invisible, I would, I'm not going to invade someone's privacy.
That's very good of you. But you don't know for sure.
I think I would feel skeevy doing that. What would I do with invisibility? I don't know. When someone says, what do you want, invisibility or flying? I always pick flying. I can get around easier. Yeah,
flying's way better.
Yeah, flying's way better. I don't have to feel guilty about flying either. Whereas I feel like anything I could do with invisibility, there's almost always someone I'm either creeping on or I'm stealing from people.
The whole point of being invisible is that you are like, because you don't care if animals don't see you, like you care if people can't see you.
Yes.
So yes, you're always going to be invading someone's privacy.
Exactly. So wanting invisibility is basically saying I'm a creep and I want to get away with being a creep.
Yes.
Okay. So.
Or Robin Banks.
Or Robin, yes. Say thieving. He said, or Robin, and I'm like, what's Robin got to do with this?
Oh, because comic books?
Oh, yeah. Well, you say because of it's like non-comic readers don't understand who Robin is in the context of Batman and Robin. Such an obscure character.
I hear the name Robin, I think of Robin Quivers from Howard Stern.
It's not like I casually mentioned Firestorm, the nuclear man, and expected people to know what I meant.
I don't know. I only know of Nuclear Man from Superman 4: The Quest for Peace.
Different character, no.
Nuclear.
Firestorm is two people fused together when they come together to form Firestorm.
Sounds hot.
I love how you said that like 2 minutes after saying women don't have any desire to peep on men. Spoilers from this point on for Invisible Man's Revenge. So yeah, film starts with a package labeled London, which our villain breaks out of, and goes and gets himself some new clothes at a tailor's. And what I thought was weird about this, the scene ends with like him leaving, and like he leaves his old clothes with the tailor because he doesn't want them anymore, and the tailor immediately pulls out a news clipping of like saying, oh, this murderer escaped from a mental asylum, and here's he murdered 2 orderlies and a nurse. And I'm like, okay, I have several questions. One, why did this man have this on him He is the person who committed this crime. Why did he take out a clipping of this himself? Because it feels like he's escaped, and this is where he arrived after like one trip. So when did he have time to get a newspaper and like cut this out? And
who packed him in this box for London that he had to cut his way out of?
And I know some serial killers keep paper clippings and stuff as like a trophy, like but they never present him as that type of killer. He's not like a serial killer who's like getting off on it. Like for the rest of the film, whenever he references these killings, it's always like, oh, he had to kill people to escape. It wasn't that he was a killer beforehand or anything like that.
Yeah, like if he was, you know, when he meets up with the couple, he's like, you don't know what I had to go through to get here, what I had to do to get here. Like that could be like just an ominous little thing overhead where we can be like, I wonder if he had to kill, or if he like is a bad person.
So not only that, this guy who finds this clipping and sees that this guy that just left was a murderer, he didn't, you know, call this in, tell anyone, tell the police or anything. He just that he's just happy to go on with his life. Especially,
you'd think that would be the end of it. Like, oh well, I know where this guy is and what he's wearing. Here you go. Here you go, police officer, Bobby.
He also gets threatened by him as well, like halfway through the conversation, because he correctly predicts what boat he came in on, because that was just the boat that arrived. So he's like, oh, did you come in on the whatever? And he gets like, wait, how do you know that? Have you been following me? And he just grabs him and like gets really threatening.
This guy's so small and elderly, he like grabs him by the collar and starts yelling at him, and then he finds out he's a murderer. Like you would think he would, like that's all the ammunition you need to know that this guy's super dangerous.
Never brought up again.
Well, it was a different time.
We're then introduced to Jasper and his wife Irene in their relatively big, I don't know if you quite call it a mansion. It's kind of mansion-esque.
They have a great room with a great big fireplace.
Yeah, they got a butler. I mean, that's I suppose all you need to know. There is a smart thing in the script here to just get, and this is again making us not like them, is that in a minute when Griffin's the main character's name, when Griffin shows up, right, to try and ask for the money that is owed to him, they have a conversation here where they talk about how well they're doing, because they're meeting with Julia's, was that her name? No, Julie, right? So the daughter Julie,
her prospective fiance. So
she's introducing her fiance to her parents, right? And he's this young reporter, and they're chatting and they're being casual, and then the young couple leave. And we get this little conversation with Jasper and Irene. The dad, you know, Jasper, he's a little bit, well, he seems all right, but, you know, there's not a lot of money from that family. And Irene goes, it's not like our grandkids are going to starve, implying that they're well off and that their side of the family will more than, like, take care of any needs that their family does.
Right.
So when in walks Griffin, and at first he's like, oh, I don't remember what happened. I had amnesia, you know, when I got left behind. What happened that day in Africa? It turns out them together as a group were looking for diamonds in Africa. He got hit in the head with a tree or something, which gave him amnesia, and he's been locked up somewhere since. And then he got here. They say to him, oh, I'm sorry, all the money from the diamonds is gone. And immediately as the audience, we're like, I think you're bullshitting, because you were just bragging to each other about how well off you are.
Yeah.
So this is the first moment where you're like, well, who am I rooting for in this conversation then? Because I know he's actually killing people, but now I don't trust you two either.
We already know at this point that he's a murderer.
Yeah. So which is why I thought, oh, at this point we're going to shift, you know, after this scene we're going to shift to Julie and the boyfriend, and they're going to be our main character, and it never does. No. Not really. I mean, the boyfriend
comes in to play later on, but and he is probably the most like good person.
But we never follow him on his own, really. He's always there because one of the other characters that we do follow is in the scene with him. Like, he's never a main character in that sense.
It is very weird. I was thinking this was going to be some, like, Count of Monte Cristo Invisible Man revenge film where, you know, the people have done him wrong and they've become super wealthy, and now it's Invisible Man's turn to get his, what they owe him from them. But, it's not really, I don't know. It was kind of setting it up to sound something similar. And then he would go off, instead of being trained in like the aristocratic ways and becoming an expert swordsman, instead he just meets this man who makes him invisible and gives him superpower that way.
Well, as the scene goes on, he gets more accusatory, because at first they're acting like they're old friends and they're happy to see him, and He's happy to see them, but it kind of, you know, the truth starts to come out a little bit. And he says he wants his half. Like, he has the agreement in his pocket. He still has that with him. And I'm like, okay, that's okay. You still had that on you the whole time. I guess you.
I want half of these stolen diamonds, or I'm going to court. I don't know if they were stolen, but it sounds like they took them from some indigenous village.
It sounds like legally he has a claim in the context of the movie, because the English court would not see what they're doing as stealing from someone else, because it's another country.
Because they're not white.
I was dancing around it, but yes, let's just get into it. Yes, there's a racist overtone to that element of it. He starts asking for half the money, and they claim they don't have it. All the money from the diamonds is gone, but they do have the house because it was given to them. Again, we know that they're better off than they're saying, because they were bragging about it 5 minutes ago, if that. And then they say, what if we give you half the estate though? Like, we put half of it in your name, and like it means that you're entitled to like half of what this place makes, or when we're gone, you'll get it, or whatever. He counter-offers them with, well, maybe a bride would be good. Maybe, and he starts looking at the daughter's photo. Where's young Julie? I always did have a hankering for her.
You were wondering where that photo went. I guess either they lost the photo and he grabbed it, or found it like after he, you know, got knocked out by the tree and they all thought he was dead. I'll
be honest, I wasn't sure if he ever really had amnesia.
Oh yeah, I guess that's true.
Was that just a story that he's telling them?
I don't know. It really seems like he doesn't know what happened.
Or
he could be hiding that he was in an asylum.
Yeah, he could just be hiding that part. Yeah.
That's the yada 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 he skips over.
Because here's the question. So if he did get amnesia, right? Let's say he actually had amnesia, but he had this photo of their daughter on him, right, when he got amnesia. So for these past few years, where he's living in a hospital and he's got this photo, he pulls out this photo and he doesn't know who this is. Then he doesn't know it's his friend's daughter, or his colleague's daughter.
Maybe it's selective amnesia.
Does he think this is his daughter? Does he think it's his wife? Does he think it's like, what does he think?
I don't know. This movie doesn't make much sense.
It skirts over some things, and it does raise some questions when you stop and think about it for more than 5 seconds. Yeah. So odd, but yes. So just to establish the fact that this couple are villains, the wife then drugs his drink, and he starts feeling woozy, and it's clear that the husband didn't know this, because what I thought it was going to do here is that the wife is the evil one. And I thought
she really comes off that way, yeah.
Yeah, she looks really sinister, and I thought maybe it was going to maybe reveal later that she intentionally injured him or tried to kill him in Africa back in the day.
Yeah, I was getting that vibe also.
Yeah. And because here the husband's like, oh my god, what have you done? And he's like, I gave him something. We can't have him going around telling people these things, or ruining our reputation. So they basically just decide to send him out while he's drunk. And I got a little confused here, because he ends up falling in the water. There's a lake near their house, right? And that's where the Cockney guy runs into him. And the Cockney guy and Griffin seem to think that they tried to kill him by putting him in the lake, but he never actually leaves the house with them. Like Jasper,
they just push him out at the door.
Yeah, he walks him to the door, and it does feel like they're planning something, because it's like he's making sure the butler sees him walk out. Yeah. So they're making sure the butler doesn't think that they've murdered him in any way, which implies that they are hoping he's going to die when he leaves. But they don't actually go with them or put him in the water themselves.
Nope.
So it's treated like an attempted murder, but in reality, I wouldn't really call it. I would say, I'd say it's cruel. I'd say okay, they've drugged him and just sent him outside, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's trying to drown him either. They play it off as.
He walks quite a ways before he falls into the water, and then even the Cockney guy who goes to rescue him is just like, take my hand, but he still has to swim to the bank in order to get him. He really does nothing. Grabbing his hand versus grabbing just the land would have been the same thing.
Yeah, so the whole thing's a bit murky to me, especially since as the film goes on, it doesn't feel like they were hoping he was going to die. It doesn't feel like, oh, we had this sinister plan for him to kill himself or get killed sort of seemingly by accident. It was more,
it was just arrest him if he shows up at our property again. Yeah,
we'll make it look like he's just this awful drunk or something, and therefore we can.
But their daughter doesn't live there, so she could still be, or maybe she does live with them.
I think she does. She was just out for the night with the boyfriend.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess, I mean, it still seems like she's not very protected if they don't, like, get him arrested or something first.
Yeah, maybe they'll just try to discredit him by making him look really bad, like he's just this drunk guy who shows up. Anyway, they steal his the proof that he has that they made this agreement.
I know, and they're like, we're gonna hold on to this and protect it so no one gets it. But they're saying this right in front of a fireplace, and it's a piece of paper. Like, just burn it. There's your out right there behind you.
We cut to Griffin waking up, and this Cockney guy is taking him in and sort of letting him get warm and whatever. He's explained all this backstory to the Cockney guy off camera. And he's like, so really, maybe you're onto something. Maybe we can make some money off of them. I'll help you. I know a lawyer. And he's trying to like worm his way into this scheme so he can get something out of it. And he's like, I've got proof. And he goes to check his pocket, and he's like shocked. Oh my god, they've taken my proof.
It's true. That was a funny moment.
I'm shocked.
How could this happen?
Yes, I'm shocked that
it was such an airtight plan. I would just show them the paper and they would give me the diamonds.
Yeah, why would you, even if you said you have the paper, why would you admit that it's on your persons? Why would you like take it out of your pocket and go, here, I've got it right here. This is it. It
was a different time back then. People didn't know.
They were stupid, is what you're telling me. So again, we're not even close to the Invisible Man stuff yet, because we get a scene where this Cockney guy, what's his name, just so I'm not calling him that the whole time, Higgins, it's Herbert Higgins, he's got alliteration in his name. Higgins, with his little lawyer friend, go to Jasper's house, and they're explaining to him that they're, like, on behalf of Griffin, they're going to seek half of what he's owed, and we also want £1 million in damage. And £1 million in 1944 was probably quite a hefty, I mean, $1 million's still a lot today, but in 1944 money, that's hefty.
Oh yeah,
it's probably more like 10 million in today's money.
I'm pretty sure he bought a Burberry coat in the beginning for like £2.
Yeah. So he's really cocky about it, and I think this is why this character was kind of funny at times, is because he does kind of weasel and like go back in his word immediately, like every chance he gets. The inspector is like just round to visit or something, and he comes in and like Jasper just says, oh, they're trying to blackmail me, they said they've got this and this, and then eventually Jasper reveals that the proof's gone and that he doesn't have the agreement anymore, and the lawyer just stands up and says, oh well, nothing can happen here then, bye bye,
good luck, let me know what happens.
And that's just basically it. And if anything, the inspector just says to him, like, hey, you tell that Griffin fellow that I don't want him in my jurisdiction, tell him to leave, like, now. So it's when he's just on his travels leaving the city that he happens to, like, in the snow or whatever it is, maybe it's just raining, I can't remember, but the weather's bad, and he comes up to this door. Would you believe it? It's a mad scientist who, when he explains that he's kind of like, you know, he doesn't want to be seen, he's like,
on the run.
Yeah, he's like, oh, you're a fugitive then. Oh, you might be desperate. Wouldn't you like to come in?
Yeah, I like the way his face changes to like this sudden excitement. I'm like, ooh, now I'm into this.
Yeah, you're desperate and you might let me get away with some things because you're on the run.
Yeah. How do you feel about becoming a human centipede?
Yeah, it's like, oh, he sees like a guinea pig walking. He's like,
yeah.
But of course, making him invisible might just make him more dangerous, which that was the other thing. I almost got a little excited at the start of the movie. In the very first couple of scenes, when it established that he had murdered people, I thought, oh, we're going to take a psychopath and turn him invisible. Like, that could be, I mean, that is basically what some of the newer things have done, where we actually threaten like an invisible killer on the loose. But instead, the movie never becomes that, because he's not interested in killing anyone again. He's only interested in getting his revenge and like extorting money out of Jasper and his wife.
I mean, it's in the title of the film.
Yeah. He's telling me want to kill people for revenge, though.
Yeah, that would have been awesome to get a movie from the 50s about an invisible serial killer.
Yeah. Well, 40s, but yeah.
40s, excuse me. Yeah, you're right.
So, but eventually the invisible dog shows up, and of course this like freaks out Griffin. He's like, what's going on here? He's like, oh, I've been working on invisibility, and would you care to be the first human experiment, the first human trial of invisibility?
Well, he's got a perfectly functioning dog there, German Shepherd. The guy seems to be healthy, better than healthy. The invisibility serum also makes him, you know, I guess, stronger or something.
He agrees to go through with this. He becomes invisible. And they don't really talk about, like, is this permanent? Will you come back?
I thought he does ask, actually. I thought he said, how long will this last? And the scientist says, until you die. Till your grave or something.
Oh, I suppose, yeah. Oh, you're right.
I mean, unless you count the dodgy special effects scenes.
Well, no.
As him fading back in.
Well, no, I'm getting confused too, because later on in the film, he does start to fade back to being normal again.
Well, what happens is he gets the blood, but I don't think it's enough of a transfusion, so he starts to become invisible again.
Like that's what I was mixing up, because it does become this thing where it does wear off after some time.
Yeah, the invisibility comes back after he thinks he's fixed everything.
Yes, it's the other way around. Yes, he's normal, and then he starts to be invisible again. Yeah. Okay, I got myself confused. I got my scenes mixed. It's not that confusing a movie. I just mixed a couple of things up. Anyway, so he becomes invisible. And he immediately goes to Jasper and like torments him in his bedroom and says, hey, you're going to give me half of your money, you're going to give me the deed to the estate, and also your daughter. Like, I'm taking it all because I'm invisible and I can kill you at any time. And he's holding like a knife up at him. Jasper's freaking out a little bit, but when he writes this like note out explaining that he's giving all this stuff over to him, Griffin starts reading it in the chair. And because he's like reading it, he knows where he's looking. So Jasper gets up and tries to hit him with a chair, and it's like just at the last minute, Griffin like realizes and stands up and says, no, none of that now. The wife Irene comes in, like says, "What's going on? What's with the noise?" And he's like, "There's an invisible. He's here. He's invisible. Griffin's here, darling. You're overreacting. Don't worry. It's okay. You're just feeling a little bit tired. You're hearing things. It's okay." Then she notices the paper he's holding, and it's like the transfer of like, you know, goods over to Griffin. She's reading it and going, "Honey, you can't be writing things like this. Like, what?" She just starts to rip it up, and she's like, "You can't be writing things like that." Honestly, I thought there were, and again, I kept like thinking of things they could do to have fun with this movie, and what I thought maybe was going to happen here is that Griffin was intentionally going to just be quiet every time she was around and just keep tormenting Jasper.
Yeah, so that he comes off as crazy.
Yeah, and he does that for like a minute, but it's the same scene where he eventually just starts making sounds again.
If he really wanted to have revenge, he could just like torment them by like, I mean, I guess that kind of happens in another version of this film, but
like a ghost, you know? Yeah, you could just be like a ghost to them. Or at least him, and make him look crazy to his wife and like maybe ruin his marriage, because eventually she'll be like, you know what, I've had enough of this. Yeah,
or like send him to an insane asylum.
Yeah. He says that he wants his daughter, and Jasper basically says no, but he'll go along with it if he becomes visible again. He doesn't want his daughter to be with an invisible man. That's weird.
How noble.
And he's like, all right then, I'll see what I can do. He agrees to it. Before that happens though, there's a scene in a bar. There's like an extended scene in a pub. We get our one big jokey scene, because basically he's still working with the Cockney guy, Higgins. Higgins is like basically talking a big game to the guys playing pool and playing darts in the pub. Eventually Griffin starts like saying things, but they think it's him saying it because they can't see Griffin obviously. So like he says something like, "Oh, you're an ass," to like someone, and they turn around and go, "What did you say to me, Higgins?" And he's like, "Oh, nothing, sir, nothing, don't hit me." And like he's not sticking up for himself. But eventually he challenges him to a game of darts, and I did kind of like this because like it wasn't just like done automatically either. Like Griffin comes over to Higgins and says, "Look, you have to do it slow enough so that I can take the dart over, right? We have to."
And I have enough time to run back.
Yeah, so don't do it too quickly. So I kind of like them acknowledging like the ways that this doesn't work, but so let's try and work together to make this.
Yeah, I enjoyed the scene actually.
Yeah, I thought that was fun. What I didn't think made sense about the scene, because the reporter boyfriend's here as well, having a drink, and we hear other people talking. There's actually rumors of an invisible man going around. People have seen like someone like a shirt walking around or something.
Yeah.
So there's actually rumors have spread, and what I didn't like about that is that you have all these characters openly talking that there's rumors of someone who's invisible.
And you have these physically impossible dart throws.
At no point in the scene does anyone suggest, hey, maybe that rumor's got something to do with this.
Right, yeah.
Like, even if they don't believe it, it's just weird that no one even floats the idea that this weird...
I mean, there is a point where one of the darts does like a curve.
Yeah. It's like that movie Wanted with Angelina Jolie and James McAvoy curving bullets. Like, it curves the dart and the dart goes whoosh. It's going so slow because it's someone just holding it. That at least I appreciated that though. I appreciate they didn't speed it up, and it's like, wait, how could he be moving that quick? It went in the genuine speed that someone could do it. Like, someone could just be like guiding it across with their hand.
Right.
Which I appreciate.
I like that. I like that too.
But yeah,
it's still kind of fast if you are running with it.
Yeah, but the problem is though, if he runs, they'll hear his footsteps.
Right.
It'd be too loud. Yeah.
Well, he's already nude.
Yeah.
He's not wearing any clothes. Which
they never bring up in this movie. All the other movies like address the idea.
It looks like it's cold there. Like, everyone's wearing double jackets. Yeah. Double peacoats.
But they never address the fact that he's naked in any of these scenes. Whereas that was a big deal, like taking off the clothes in the previous movies, or complaining it was cold or whatever. There was a lot of comedy, Invisible Woman about that. Here, this never addressed. Which is, I mean, we don't have to go into it too much, but you'd think it would come up in some way, like, oh, he can't be outside for too long because it's too cold or something. Yeah. It's a mostly fun scene though. He even punches one of the other guys at the pub at one point, and
another great face. Yes. I thought.
And the rest of the people at the pub all back away, thinking, oh, Higgins is like a hard man now, even though he clearly didn't throw a punch.
No, but it's a good comedy bit.
Yeah. It's the only time of the movie like it was having fun with what it was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was a reason for it. It wasn't like, oh, I'm lifting the teacup on my own for no reason, but don't look at me because I don't want you to know I'm invisible.
I think what maybe would have made this work is for more of the movie, even though we've seen like gags before with the invisible stuff, is the idea that he's working with someone who isn't invisible to make it look like they're doing something. I think that would feel new for the franchise, is the idea that he's got like a partner who isn't invisible, that they're kind of like making it look like he's up doing like impressive or insane stuff.
Right.
Like he's making something float. Like, what
they
if
can be magicians?
Yeah, what if they team up with a magician and like, no, I'll actually pick things up and they'll be floating.
That'd be great. Let's make it.
But yeah, so he goes back to the doctor and says, I need to be human again. Although he notably watches from the window as he makes the dog visible again. And so when he comes in and says, hey, I need to be visible again, and the doctor's like, oh, it's impossible. It's like, I just saw you do it to the dog. What are you talking about? Is it, well, I had to use all of the blood from another dog to do it, so we'd have to kill someone to like make you visible. Right. And I'm not going to do that because I'm a mad scientist, but I'm not a killer.
I ain't no murderer.
Apparently all it takes is a transfusion because he does it himself, because he kills the scientist and does it himself.
Yeah.
Which makes him visible again.
Which I didn't think would be something that someone can do to themselves, give a blood transfusion.
I wouldn't know how to give myself a transfusion if someone asked me to.
No, but I appreciate when it comes up again that we get to see the process at least. And
he changes his name because we cut to like ahead in time. He's living at the house with like Jasper and his wife. Although, what's weird is that from this point on, you never see the wife again. There's like one conversation where the daughter mentions she's sick and delirious because she saw like some Invisible Man antics, but that's it. We never see her again.
Cutscene, I guess.
I don't get it though. Why is she not there at the end when they're all like discovering and resolving everything? It's weird.
I don't know. She seemed equally as villainous. She was in Africa with them.
But he's living there under a different name. He's not like taking the Jasper's not somehow gotten rid of the boyfriend yet to like give his daughter to him. That's still in the process apparently, because the boyfriend's still there for breakfast, like, and they're all hanging out together. He's normal now, except he starts to turn invisible again during like breakfast, and he has to rush off and make an excuse. But there's a decent conversation beforehand actually where the reporter's like sort of sniffing around, even though he's
being very passive aggressive. Yeah.
He's technically on vacation, but he started like writing about this like, Invisible Man story because after he killed the scientist, he burned his place down, and the reporter thinks that this Invisible Man may be a vampire, and he goes, "But why did you think that?" And then his reason is not actually that bad. He's like, "Well, because the scientist who was murdered was drained of his blood." And I'm like, that would actually look a bit fishy.
Yeah,
wouldn't that would look a bit fishy. And they sort of like, it's like, oh, what if he needs it to for something, or they start like having this like weird quid pro quo.
It's a dick measuring contest between, because they both want the girl.
Yeah.
So he's like, well, what if I know more about the Invisible Man than you do, Mr. Reporter, doing a story on it? And it does kind of give him away, though.
Yeah, it's one of these scenes where I feel like anyone, like, the reporter should know he's the Invisible Man by the time this scene's over. He really should, with how, like, blatant he's being with what he's saying.
He does call him out on it. He's like, sounds like you should be writing this story. Like, it is very passive aggressive the way he says it.
Well, he's trying to steal his wife, so I mean, or his wife to be.
Right.
But I mean, basically, we're almost at the end of the movie at this point. Griffin, who's starting to become invisible again, he realizes he needs more blood. Basically, the transfusion's not permanent. It was permanent for the dog, because the dog's still visible. And the hero. And survived. The dog did survive. He's going to come back, don't worry.
Does not like the Invisible Man.
But, well, that's what happens here, actually. Before we get to, like, the breakfast scene, there's a scene where the dog's still trying to chase him down because he knows who he is. The cockney guy, Griffin, is like, I know what you did. I want paid off. I want you to pay me off forever.
Higgins.
What did I say?
Griffin.
Oh, sorry, yes, Higgins.
Invisible Man. Yeah.
So Higgins wants paid off. Or he just wants to stick around. He's like, oh no, now that you're rich and living here, like, I want you to, like, keep me around, and, like, I want to benefit from this. Even though when they, like, scene before this, when they're talking to, like, the police, and they're saying, oh yeah, this guy Griffin, because this is why he's changed his name, is they know that Griffin is the Invisible Man. He's like, oh yeah, that Griffin guy is crazy. Yeah, yeah, you know, he forced me to help him. Like, you know, he turns his back on him immediately as soon as he's questioned by the authorities. But here, he's like, oh, now that you're rich and living under this other name, like, I want you to keep giving me money. Like, I want to benefit from the fact that you pulled this off. Griffin's, like, basically ready to kill him. But then when the dog starts barking, he's like, oh, actually, you know what? I'll pay you. I'll pay you £500 to, like, make you shut up and go away on the condition that you also kill that dog. And then he's like, oh, 500 for a big job like that? Like, oh, okay, 1,000. I'll give you £1,000 if you kill that dog and then go away. Which he agrees to. So there's some scenes later on of, like, Higgins, like, chasing the dog around before the dog comes in to save the day.
The dog keeps trying to tell people that, hey, the guy you're looking for is here. He keeps howling outside the door.
Anyway, so he's become invisible. At the end of the movie, he lures the reporter boyfriend down into the basement where he's going to try and, like, knock him out, and he starts transferring blood. It just so happens that at this point, the dog runs in and starts barking and going down into where the basement is, clawing at the door. And the police inspector's here at this point. Jasper's there. They're all there. They're like, oh, he must be behind that door. Let's break it down and go in and see what happens.
The dog goes straight for the throat.
The dog basically kills Griffin, by pushing him into some, like, shelves or whatever. Yeah, the only thing we glossed over there is that when when the reporter does go down, when he's lured by Griffin, who's now completely invisible, Griffin does, like, fight with them, and that's the scene where he's, like, you know, flapping around and getting into the wall and getting flipped onto a table or whatever, and it looks a little silly at times.
It does. It looks a very, like, Shatner moment of acting. Shatning.
So yeah, the movie just kind of ends with the one. He's gone, and this evil couple who really did wrong by him. They have their
blood diamond money. And
yeah. They get to live on with no repercussions for anything they did.
Uh-huh.
At least Julie gets to marry the nice guy now.
Yeah.
That's your happy ending. It's just that the movie doesn't focus on them, so we don't really necessarily care that much about them either.
I mean, I guess I'm glad the reporter lived, because, you know, he had partial blood loss, but not entirely.
And I guess Higgins is going to pretend that he was never working for him at all, even though he tried to kill a dog and help with a lot of shenanigans. I mean, to be fair to Higgins, I don't think Higgins ever knew that he was, like, murdering people the way he was. Yeah. Like, you know, he never knew he'd crossed that line, at least until he maybe threatened them at one point when he says, oh, I've killed people, you might be next. And at that point he's scared and he's sniveling and he's just wanting to protect himself. But
yeah, he's already in too deep.
I just wish I cared about some of these characters. I wish there was more suspense or thrills. Or if you're going to do just more light-hearted comedy like Invisible Woman did, then that's cool too. You can do that.
Just go for it.
But it doesn't do either of those things.
No, not really. Middle of the road as far as these Invisible Man films go. It wasn't, like, terrible, but, like, a lot of missed opportunity, which we've had previously. But at least it didn't go out of the way to make really, really dumb decisions.
So yeah, there's technically one more in this original franchise from Universal, which is Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man. I don't know if that's one we'll do. We really
I don't know either.
Yeah, I'm not sure what a review of that would be like, to be honest. Given how we talk about movies, it might not fit. But the plan was always to just sort of keep going into other Invisible Man movies and do, maybe not in order.
So we do the Chevy Chase one?
Yeah, the Chevy Chase one that's directed by John Carpenter. Hollow Man is on the table. Tara's insistent that we do a movie that me and Tim did on a bonus episode of Streams Once Upon a Time, which is The Invisible Maniac, which, to be honest, feels like it does fit into the overall theme. I know that Japan had 2 or 3 Invisible Man movies that it made in the 50s, so maybe worth checking out them. We might find some, some gems, or maybe not. Maybe we'll find some trash, but
maybe we'll at least check one of them out.
Yeah, I know Arrow put out Blu-rays of them, so they are
okay.
available in some in decent format.
We'll just do them then. Why not? We do one of these every 5 months, so.
And maybe eventually we would do the 2020 movie.
That'd be good.
And I'm sure there's some other like spin-offs or other maybe ones that we've not considered that fit into the Invisible, not franchise, but just like this kind of lineage of the Invisible Person movies.
Yeah.
That we can do. But we might not necessarily do them in order though.
We do the Fantastic Four films.
I wasn't going to count that, no. But yeah, I'm not going to say we'll do them in order because we might miss some and then want to go back. So like if we jump to Hollow Man next, it doesn't mean we're not going to do like one from the 80s or one from the 50s. We'll probably just bounce around now because they're not connected in any way, so who cares? Like,
right.
But yes, so more Invisible movies coming. Probably 1 or 2 a year seems to be the rate.
We still have other franchises to finish. We haven't finished Apes.
Yes, and Predator.
And Predator.
All that said, we should rate The Invisible Man's Revenge. So, what are you giving it, Tara?
I'm going to give it a straight 5. I don't think it's unwatchable. I think for the time it was released, I think it's, enjoyable enough. I do like some of the I don't say gimmicky stuff, but I still get into the special effects of the film. Just a lot of wasted potential, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think the premise of him like having to kill people to take their blood so that he can become visible again, I think that's an interesting idea, but I think that should be established in the first half hour, and then the movie should be about him having to kill more people. So it should be like a.
You want the Invisible slasher film?
Well, not even slasher. I'm thinking more like
or just survival.
Yeah, I'm thinking more like an American Psycho style movie with like, but he's doing it for a reason where each victim's to like make him visible again. So I mean, there's definitely stories where someone has to keep killing to feed or keep them human because they'll turn into a witch or something if they don't.
Yeah, I was thinking witches.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna go straight 5 as well. I think 5 is a fair score. It's not like a horrible watch, and it's not like unwatchable like you say. It's perfectly viewable, but it's nothing special. Doesn't have anything to root for, and doesn't even remember to be fun most of the time. So I would say a 5 is pretty fair in this case. So 5 out of 10 from me too. So there you go.
Cool.
I'm going to make Tara pose for the thumbnail. So here we go. 3, 2, 1, pause. You didn't do anything, you just stood there.
I have no idea what to do for this.
You just stood still.
I don't know. Put a hat on me or something.
Put a hat on you? There you go. That's Invisible Man's Revenge. I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Patsias, David Short, Board Now, Christopher Moy, David Brown, Al Tradesman, and Alison M. Fordyce. They are producers that are one of the higher tiers over at Patreon, but you can support us for much less than that. Can't they, Tara?
That's right, Peter. If you enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MilesFuzzTV, where you can get access to reviews for B movies that we do and some not-so-B films. And you'll also get Screams After Midnight reviews, bonus episodes, including The Invisible Maniac, which I think was the first one.
That was the very first episode, so I have to scroll down to find it, but it's there.
It's a classic. check it out. And that's what you get for $1. But if you donate $5 per month, you'll get access to these reviews 1 day early, and you get to vote on what we watch. So
Once a month.
Worth it to
Once
you.
a month, not every episode. Once a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can also submit films that you want us to watch.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Lots of perks, and you join a very nice community of people who love the things you love.
The degenerates and scoundrels. Yes.
The mutants.
Thank you very much for joining us once again. We always appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction and computer. Add salsa.